All right, no better time to talk about the NBA than in the middle of August when the NBA is at its peak. But that's what we are doing here on the Open Floor podcast. Chris Mannix along with Rachel Nichols, All the Smoke, Monumental Sports Network, and of course, does a great job right here on this podcast. And Rachel, the biggest question, the most important question I have for you is so obvious that it might not even need asking. What did you think of the New Heights interview with Taylor Swift?
Dude, glued to it in this household. I have two daughters, okay? So between the sports angle and the Taylor Swift angle, every word of this was parsed. I thought it was fantastic on all counts, right? You got to see Travis with all his little goofy grin stuff. Get to hear a little bit about how much Taylor likes football now, and she's not joking around. My favorite line was her saying that, when she first started watching football because of Travis, she didn't know what a tight end was. She actually thought that all the players were on the field playing each other. So like the quarterbacks would be on the field and they'd also have to defend and all of that stuff. So she said that now she knows all the coverages that Travis faced, cover 2, cover 4, cover 0, all the stuff that he has to do. And that she's actually this summer been the crazy person because they were in different places during the NFL draft. And she said all of a sudden, she's with some friends and she's running through her house screaming, "We got Xavier Worthy! We got Xavier Worthy!" And she had to call Travis and tell him because he didn't know the Chiefs had traded up to get him. And her friends, she said in the house, were like, "Have you been body snatched? Like, what's happening?" So I just, the next season, when we hear the inevitable complaining of NFL fans about Taylor Swift in their spaces, Taylor Swift is a legit football fan and may know more than some of the people watching. Just saying.
Yeah, I can't remember the last non-sports show I watched live, but I watched that live. I watched it live. I mean, it was all over my Twitter feed up until that point. And it's funny, like, I am not a Swiftie. I'm not even a big NFL guy. Like, what I know of Travis Kelce is that he's definitely not better than Gronk. Like, so I just, I'm not like in either of those spaces, but like, I'm just fascinated by the two of them. And it was interesting. It was good. Like, even hearing her talk about like the master tapes, like inside music stuff. And, little things. I thought Jason Kelce did a really nice job as an interviewer, for 2 hours. Yes. It was great. I mean, she's so media savvy that even though she's doing it because she's there with Travis, like she drops her new album on the podcast. So smart, good, all good all around. Like
you said the podcast. She's like, well, this because she's never done a podcast before, and she said, they asked her, well, why are you, you haven't done a podcast all these years. Why are you finally doing it? She's like, well, this podcast got me my boyfriend, so I feel like I owed it to the podcast to come back on. So there you go.
Is there any sports couple that could do bigger numbers than Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce? Like, I've been trying to think of it. I don't think there is.
I don't think so, because I just don't think there's anyone bigger than her. I mean, again, if you're not in the world of having daughters or being friends with people of a age where they are obsessed, like plenty of adult women or adults in general, like Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift, but my children are obsessed. And if you don't know those kinds of people, you might not realize she's literally one of the most recognizable people on the planet. I mean, the global fandom for her is off the charts. And I'm sure whatever their final numbers are going to be for the podcast will involve like a ton of international viewers, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah, even like peak Tom Brady, peak Giselle in their days, I don't think it would have done. That's the only thing I could think of, like two uber celebrities that maybe globally would do a big number, but not even close. Talk? No, I mean, I'm just saying peak them, like 2018 Tom Brady or whatever his best Patriots year was, and peak Giselle. I don't know. That was ridiculous. Probably going to do like 60 million views ultimately on YouTube. It's going to be an absolute monster when it's all said and done. All right, there is our Taylor Swift 3-4 minutes here on the show. We're going to get to the NBA schedule release, which is the anchor for why we're talking today. The NBA releasing their full schedule on Thursday afternoon. Some interesting games, of course, on that slate. We're also going to talk about some ownership changes in the NBA. The Portland Trail Blazers have a new owner. What does that mean? The Celtics, they're going to have a new governor next season. What does that mean? But you brought my attention to something I want to start with, and that was an interview that Michael Porter Jr. did with the One Night with Steiny podcast. Michael Porter Jr., of course, now with the Brooklyn Nets, traded from Denver, has had a very interesting life overall. Certainly has a very interesting family dynamic, a tragic family dynamic. But he appeared on this podcast and he discussed at length the sports gambling issue that faces the NBA. I want to play a clip of some of the things that he said.
But the whole sports gambling like entity, bro, it's bad, and it's only gonna get worse, bro. Like we really do get death threats. Like if you and the thing is you can't.
Somebody doesn't hit a parlay.
Crazy part is you can't win anymore because if I do too good, I'm messing up the people that bet on the under. And if they bet on my over, like, you know what I'm saying? So you're messing up some people's money.
So Rachel, I think we all believe that sports gambling was a looming, budding problem in the NBA. We've seen a lot of evidence of that. But did you learn anything new from this interview that Michael Porter Jr. did?
First of all, that he's gotten death threats over not making an over or an under just by fans. And, there's a little bit of this in fantasy football also. I have a lot of football players who tell me, like, a lot of it's not fun. Interacting with the fans isn't as fun anymore because they're just being yelled at about someone's fantasy team and not about the game they played or the team that won or just being out there and being good. So I think gambling kind of ups that ante more. And hearing him talk about some of the players' experiences of it, I thought was illustrative, even though we, of course, already knew some of it. And I think the point that he made overall wasn't the NBA shouldn't have betting sponsors, which is kind of where things are right now, even though to his point, and I feel the same way, it's really not about whether the NBA has a betting sponsor. That doesn't really affect the players. They might see like a DraftKings logo in the arena or something, but their day-to-day that get to the arena, they shoot around a little bit, they get treatment, maybe play a game that night. Like that's really not affected by the fact that the NBA, one of their sponsors is DraftKings. Where it's a problem, he said, is that gambling in general is so legal and so online and so available everywhere in this country. And that is what has made everything so tempting. That is what has made everything so problematic in terms of the fan interaction. He made the point of saying, this is bad, I don't do this. But he also said, look, I come from, a poor family and there's definitely people out there who don't come from, wealthy backgrounds. And if they want one of their friends to make 10 grand, they just have to say like, great, I'm going to hit the under tonight, that kind of thing. And it's hard to track that. I mean, if you're doing it with a syndicate, eventually you'll get caught, but it is hard to track it on the littler level. And his suggestion was that, for the integrity of these sports, gambling should return to Las Vegas only, in person only. And I thought he made some good points, as much as I know it's fun for everyone, including you, Mr. Online Gambler.
I am an online gambler. I do think, and you'd probably agree, that the train has left the station on all this. I think whatever number of states are currently legal, what's it, 15, 20, something like that, it's eventually going to get to 50. Like it's going to get up there with legalized gambling. The horse is out of the barn here, and it's going to keep coming. I mean, the death threat stuff, I mean, I've heard a little bit of that from different players, different agents. A lot of it, mostly coming through your DMs on Instagram and things like that. And nothing, at least not that I've heard of anything that goes beyond that up at this point. But it's got to be unnerving for like a 22, 23-year-old kid to come into the NBA and, he goes for 30, and instead of like his mentions being people happy for him, they're half the people pissed off that he didn't go for 31, or half the people pissed off that he didn't get 29. So it's it's definitely a problem. And I do think that the one-off situations that he was kind of talking about are probably happening in the NBA more than we think, where it's like, a guy just decides, you know what, my hamstring's a little bit sore anyway. Maybe I'll just take the night off without, tell my coach on, after a few minutes into the game, and somebody can bet on me and win $10,000. I think it's prevalent. I just don't know. And this is a question I've asked Adam Silver in the past. Other people have as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the NBA does about it. Like, I think they can, and I think they probably will slow things down as best they can. Like, I think at one point NBA owners were discussing like having like iPads on your seat in the arenas where you can, gamble right there. Like, if you're in a legal gambling state, you can bet on whatever you want in that moment on an iPad provided to you by the team. I think that's probably not going to happen. That's probably out in terms of what's coming next for the NBA. But ultimately, it may not matter. Everybody's got an iPad in front of them and their phones. Everybody's got the ability to do that.
can't use the iPad, so you'll just have to use the phone you have in your hand. I mean, I agree with you, horses out of the barn, and I also agree with him that it's a problem. And it's just, look, some of this is the larger cultural issue that everybody, wherever you are on the political spectrum, like decent people, whether they're more to the right or more to the left, complain about the fact that American culture has become just so angry in so many ways, and that we don't treat each other very well, and that, everything's so extreme. And I think that's what we're seeing with these players getting death threats or getting people, saying terrible things to them just because they scored 30 points and not 29 and not 31. And, when you say, oh, it's mostly Instagram DMs of these death threats or whatever, I don't know, man. We've got multiple cases of some crazy dude taking a gun and shooting people, 2 legislatures in Minnesota. And, it's happening more than it used to. I would be a little unnerved by it. And that's just a shame. You shouldn't have to feel that way to play basketball. And I really also agree with you. I am not sure there's anything anyone can do about it.
That would be my question. Like, be commissioner for a day. Put yourself in Adam Silver's shoes. Like, what can you do in a situation like this? Like, the money's flowing, baby. And Adam Silver, he gets asked a lot if he regrets that op-ed he wrote for the Times of the Post, 10 years ago about how this should be happening. Everything that is happening, Adam Silver was an early advocate for it. Would he still write that same op-ed? I don't know if, he knew what he knows today. But given that, I don't know what else is... I don't know what functionally the NBA can do at this point to make things better for the players. Like, they are, as sports gambling expands, they are going to be continually more and more looked at like props. Like, it's just a fact. There's going to be a lot of people watching games they're looking at him, at Michael Porter Jr., not as a guy that can help the Brooklyn Nets advance to the playoffs, but somebody that can help you get rich if he just averages 7 assists per game or something like that. It's just, it's unfortunate, but I think there's not just the NBA, of course, the NFL, NHL. I mean, I've gone to NHL games. I don't know anything about the NHL. And I've gone to NHL games in states that have legalized gambling. In the middle of a third period, I'm like, screw it. I'm betting the under in the third. Like, it's just but if you do it in a way that's not I'm not betting the farm, it's actually kind of good. Like, it engaged me in the hockey game. I was into it.
That's what I was going to say. That's the dirty secret of all of this, is that the NFL got the huge boost from fantasy football. I mean, the NFL has obviously always been popular in this country, but you can see the numbers took a huge tick once fantasy football took off, because people were invested. Even if their team, had only 4 wins in a season or something, they were invested in other players and in wins, and it became a competition between friends, and your whole family could talk about it. And that never took off in the same way for the NHL, for the NBA, because there's just so many games, right? It's just a lot harder to have that kind of group camaraderie over the NBA or NHL. You have to be more of a diehard. But gambling has actually tipped the scales the other way. There's plenty of gambling on football, but that nightly charge, right? People who like to gamble once a day, who like to sort of have, a few times a week, have that little charge of, okay, I got some skin riding on it. The NHL and the NBA are perfect for that. And the NBA's viewership is impacted positively by people who wouldn't be turning on a basketball game, but have a little skin in the game, and so are watching a basketball game. And that's, again, the other part of all of this is that it benefits a lot of people, and it also is really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to transition from that topic, but I'm sure going to try by swinging it to the NBA schedule reveal, which took place Thursday afternoon. I got to say, Rachel, I love the NFL schedule reveal, especially now that they're doing some of these gimmicky things like Minecraft and interviewing men on the streets and things like that. The NBA schedule reveal is a lot more anticlimactic. It's dropped in the middle of the afternoon, and all the NBA really cares about is that you know where to find their games this season. And I wanted to ask you about that first before we get into specific games. One of the things I got from people in the league office and was asked to share is that graphic that shows where people can find NBA games this season, because it is more elaborate than it's ever been in years past. You've got a couple of broadcast networks, a couple of streaming services, cable TV, all owning or partially owning different days of the week when it comes to the national schedule. So it's different, that's for sure. The NBA certainly believes long-term it's going to be good for the game. Short-term, it's great for their pockets. But what do you think the react's going to be from the fan base to see, if they want to watch their favorite teams? They have to be subscribers to a lot of different things.
First of all, I do want to say that they did unveil some of the schedule this morning on Good Morning America and the Today Show. So, I got a little bit of a national TV morning charge. But yeah.
Come on, I love the Tennessee Titans man on the street stuff. I like that when they ask the weird dudes what to name the helmets.
Is it, the Titans maybe, who do the sort of the...
That was awesome.
The what is this logo? And people's answers are phenomenal. That is really great every year. But yeah, I mean, look, I think this is going to be a problem, and I think it will settle out. Obviously, people who really like basketball will get used to, this is on this night and this is on this night, and this national Sunday night game NBC will introduce after football season is over is a really cool idea, and I think will feel cool. But the problem is, no matter how many little graphics we put up, and the fact that they are going to have on NBA.com every night, sort of, here's where to find these games, and I think they're going to build it into some of the other digital stuff they're doing. Most people just sit down on their couch and click their remote and want to know where the game is. And if you put in your little search bar, which most of us now do, either it's either DirecTV or YouTube or whatever you're using, Apple TV, you type in your team's name, and frankly, 6 games show up usually. And one of them is the replay, and one of them was from yesterday, and one of them is in 3 weeks from now. And it's just harder to find than it was when you just sat down on the couch and clicked on, the channel. And I just think that is something they're going to have to deal with. Not only that it's harder to find, but, people have really hit their limit on how many streaming services they want to pay for. And I know people who are like, well, I'll pay for Amazon, but I'm not paying for Peacock, right?
That's the one. See, just that's the one I think it's going to get the most interesting. I think everybody on Earth has Amazon, some degree, at some level of Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. You're always ordering packages off Amazon. Yep. So you have Amazon. Certainly NBC is great. ABC is great. Most people still have ESPN in some capacity. The Peacock one's going to be interesting. The Peacock is not a widely distributed, at least not on the scale of some of these other apps. And I am curious to see what the reaction is to people that have to subscribe to Peacock to get certain national games. Now, Peacock and NBC paid a fortune, $2.5 billion, whatever the number was ultimately. So they can do whatever they want with those rights. But I think that's going to be where it gets interesting early in the season. Like, how many people are signing up? How many people are staying? What's the reaction going to be? Certainly people shouldn't check Twitter, because Twitter is not a good place to get real feedback from stuff like that. But I think that's the one. Like, ESPN is still going to be ESPN. It's great to have basketball back on 2 broadcast networks. It's only going to help grow the game. Amazon, again, I think people just have to. I mean,
if you look at the numbers, yes, they have a huge presence, but it's not as many as, broadcast networks. Yeah. And, ESPN even is, increasingly moving to streaming. I think they're going to have this ESPN only package that you can get on your streaming service that, just on your TV or whatever, because so many people have moved away from cable. Their cable numbers have just plummeted over and over again. And not just them, like every cable channel. And they're moving over to streaming, which is great because I think a lot of people will subscribe to it. But it's also just going to be another box on your screen. And it's funny, the head of TNT, when I worked at TNT, David Levy, I remember when he first hired me, and this was, I don't know, I'm going to say like 2012 maybe. So it was definitely still the beginning of a lot of social media. It hadn't really taken hold yet. And yes, in theory, you could watch YouTube on your TV, but only if you had like a hookup to do it and all of that. And he told me right then, he said, look, it's about 9 boxes. He goes, the future of television in 10 years will be 9 boxes. A screen can like comfortably hold 9 boxes on your TV, on your phone or on your TV screen. He's like, and you're going to compete with like movie channels and sports channels and this and that. I think it's probably 12 with the way screens have evolved, but it's a good point. And it may be that Peacock or even maybe ESPN or some of these things that you have to stream might not be in your home screen of boxes. And that's going to be an interesting thing to watch also. We'll just have to see.
Yeah. All right. There are some must-watch games that wherever they're going to be, Peacock, Amazon, all that. A lot of must-watch games on the calendar. So I want to run through the top 3 must-watch games in the regular season that you and I both have. So why don't you start? Give me the number 1 game that you're looking forward to this season.
Well, I actually think the opening night slate is perfect. I mean, it's pretty remarkable what they did there. And so, the idea of the Rockets facing the Thunder is great without the Kevin Durant factor, right? Because these are teams that are been projected. Maybe this will be the Western Conference Finals, and Houston is kind of being built in OKC's image and all of that stuff. So then you add in the Kevin Durant factor. He's going to be sitting there watching them get their rings, raising their banner. And because it's KD, he's added a little spice to the conversation. You know, people have been going at him on Twitter about, oh, isn't he be so sad to be sitting there? And he goes back, and I believe his tweet was, you know, oh, it's been about time. It's been 10 years, you know, that they won one. So he's, as usual, Kevin's not afraid to mix it up. So I think that's just going to be spicier and more fun. I don't know. What do you think of that game? Is that on your list?
that was number 2 on my list. Look, I do think that the 2 best teams in the Western Conference. I do think that Kevin Durant is the round peg, round hole type of fit that Houston badly needs. I know the Rockets really believe that. You add a scorer like that to the defensive-minded, versatile lineup that Houston has with the toughness that Ime Udoka has imbued in that team, like they're going to be good. And I love, like it's like I'd love to get the schedule makers on like some sodium penthol there and just kind of get into what exactly was it just as simple as these are the top 2 teams in the West, or did you carve this thing out once you knew Kevin Durant was going to be there? I'd be very curious to see what the answer to that question may be. But I think it's the kind of game where Kevin Durant's going to sit there, he's going to smile, and then he's going to get 50. He's going to get 50 in that game and go off and tap his chest and show exactly why Oklahoma, or that Houston was willing to commit the type of assets they were willing to commit to go and get. So I love that game, no question about it. The number 1 game, though, on my list also involves Oklahoma City. It's about a month later, a little over a month later. The Lakers against the Thunder. The first matchup between Oklahoma City and Los Angeles is in Oklahoma City on November 12th, nationally televised as well, like most Lakers games against good teams ultimately are. The Lakers, they're interesting in their own right for no other reason, but I go back to the end of the last regular season where the Lakers went into Oklahoma City on the rare road back-to-back, and they won that first game against the Thunder. And then they almost win the second game. Probably would have if Luka Doncic wasn't tossed for the wrong reason.
Yes.
They like that. Those were the days, Rachel, where we started to believe in the Lakers. Like they were winning some games up to that point, but the fact they beat the Thunder once and almost beat them twice, that made me believe that the Lakers could be a legit contender in the Western Conference. I'm curious to see if this revamped group can go into Oklahoma City and do the same things. Obviously, Luka has been beating up on the Thunder for many years now. He's been very good against that team, whether it's in Dallas or in Los Angeles. But that, to me, is going to be the first real test for where this Lakers team is, because we know how important this season is. It could be LeBron's last season with Los Angeles. So I think that to me stands out as the best game, top game on my list.
And look, I mean, you alluded to it, but you think you maybe underplayed it. Luka has torched the Thunder. Overall,
I was being nice.
Had his way with the Thunder. When he doesn't have, dozens and dozens of points, it's probably because he just decided not to. I mean, he has done 40-point games, I think. He's done all kinds of stuff against them. And they just have never seemed to figure out how to stop him. So they have won a title. Their defense only got better and better throughout the season. They had historic numbers, all of that. If they still can't stop Luka in that game you're talking about and can't stop him consistently in other matchups over the season, then whether they get to defend their title becomes a question of the bracket. And that may be true in the West overall. I mean, matchups in the West are going to be a huge part of who advances in the playoffs. But that is something I'm looking for in terms of less about what will it tell us about the Lakers, because I think the Lakers are going to just continue to be a work in progress through the season. That's normally how it goes with them. I want to see if the Thunder can contain Luka. And if they can't, I think that tells me something about the Thunder.
Yeah, and maybe it is unfair to judge the Lakers in a game that early. They've got to work Ayton in, they've got to work not Bradley Beal. They've got to work the other guys they have into their lineup. But to me, you're right. If Luka continues to own the Thunder, who in the last regular season were the best defensive team in basketball, which on paper has the horses to defend him in terms of perimeter help, that would be that'll make things more interesting, spicier as this season progresses. So, all right, give me the number 2 game that is on your list.
Well, I stuck a little bit to the highlight games, and after we do this, I really want to dig in and talk to you about Christmas because I had a lot of thoughts about the Christmas Day slate.
Okay.
But, just looking at the first half of the schedule, mainly because I just think so much changes as you go through the year. I think that the other game on opening night is interesting to me because I just think that, look, they were going to put LeBron and Steph against each other because it's just about the TV ratings. But now you've got Luka, now you've got Jimmy Butler. I think it will be a very good basketball game. So I was excited about that. And then maybe kind of tied in that area is going to be the February 1st games, which is going to be the opening night for Sunday night basketball national game on NBC. And I wrote this down. So they've got Lakers at Knicks, which I think is going to be great, and Nuggets at Thunder, which I think is going to be fantastic for a lot of the reasons we just talked about. So I just think those three games to me are of equal intrigue and importance for kind of all the same reasons, right? All three of those games figured huge contingents of stars on both sides of the court going at it in big arenas with big, exciting crowds. So all three of those kind of have a place for me as kind of equivalently games I'm very excited about. My third one, if you'll allow me, is lesser of that kind of game, but I just thought it was interesting. I always love when Trae Young is in the Garden, and that's going to happen, I think, opening week also, or maybe week 2.
That's a pretty good one as well. And Atlanta's an interesting team this year. I mean, this is the year that Trae Young is going to get an opportunity to lead a really good team deep into the playoffs. Like, things are lined up for Atlanta to be really good. And look, if things don't go well for Atlanta, they might blow it up after this year. They might trade Trae, let some of these contracts come off the books, and just reboot this thing around a different group of or a younger group of players. So this is a huge year for Trae Young and for that team. The last game on my list is actually 2 games. It's a back-to-back in January. And I got to tell you, NBA, I am disappointed that you put these 2 games in January. These 2 games should have been much earlier in the season. And I'm talking about back-to-back, home-and-home, Eastern Conference matchup between the Orlando Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, I wanted to see these 2 teams go at it early, because I think there's a decent chance, Rachel, we're talking about the Magic and the Cavs jockeying for the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, Cleveland, we know, they're running this whole thing back right now. They were a great regular season team. There's no reason to believe they won't be a great regular season team again. But the Orlando Magic are built to win. That is a team that already had an elite defense, adds a Desmond Bane type player, or Desmond Bane, to this mix to shore up their offensive woes. I think if Paolo Banchero can avoid getting hurt in the first couple of weeks of the regular season like he did last year, he's going to have an all-NBA season. I think Franz Wagner is capable of having a fringy all-NBA season. Wendell Carter is a good man in the middle. Like, this is a team that I think people are sleeping on when you're talking about contenders to win the Eastern Conference. You got the Cavs, you got the Knicks, the Hawks, maybe the Bucks even people are talking about. I think the Orlando Magic are going to be really good. They were the play-in team last year, back half of the bracket. They're going to be way better this year, way better. I think we're going to learn a lot about where they are in mid-January when they take on the Cavaliers twice.
Look, I think those are going to be great games, and they will be very telling games for people sort of trying to analyze as we head toward the playoffs. But you have to remember a few things. Orlando, up until this point, has not been that fun to watch offensively. That could change this year. But, I mean, they have had some tragic numbers at the end of games in that core. So when you're looking to put on big TV nights where you just really need to draw an audience, I don't think the schedule makers felt they could trust them yet to be entertaining. But in terms of competition, they actually backload those kinds of games on purpose on the second part of the schedule, because there is just a huge difference, whether you like it or not, about how many people pay attention to the NBA during football season and after football season is ended. So sometimes when you see like that whole series of matchups or between 2 teams, I think there was a couple notable ones this past season too, that's backloaded for a reason. They want to get people's eyeballs on the intrigue of that when more people are paying attention. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's going to be great.
I can understand that. I think, I can understand that. I think when we get to mid-January, we're going to see the Magic and the Cavs at or near the top of the Eastern Conference standings. And I think that Orlando's offense is going to be a hell of a lot better than they were last year. I don't think their defense is going to take a step back And I think they're going to come together relatively quickly. I think Desmond Bane is exactly what they need, a shot-creating backcourt player who can make threes. I think that's just a great fit for them overall. All right, couple of ownership notes.
Wait, can we just talk Christmas for 1 minute?
Oh, you want to do Christmas on this show? I thought you were saying you want to do it on a different show. I got you.
I mean, we could do it near Christmas.
No, have at it.
I'd rather do it now.
Have at it.
Did you have first of all, on on Christmas Day, 8 of the 10 teams playing on Christmas Day are Western Conference. 2 are Eastern Conference. They play each other. On opening night, it's all Western Conference. What did you, as a man who is currently sitting in Boston, think of that overall? And if you were going to put one more Eastern Conference team, I mean, they're obviously the JV to the West Varsity. We've been talking about that for months. But if you were going to try to put one more Eastern Conference team in that mix of 10, who would it be?
I mean, I probably would have rolled the dice and put a Magic Cavs game there, or put a Cavs Bucks, Cavs Hawks.
We're going to have a big star for Christmas Day.
Yeah, I know. And look at the teams that are playing. The Spurs, they've got Wemby. The Rockets, Lakers, Mavericks, Warriors, Timberwolves. Yeah, they're star-laden teams. I don't fault the NBA at all for putting this together. It's no surprise to me whatsoever, the emphasis on the Western Conference. The Western Conference is where the talent is this season. I know the East would probably hate the JV label, but that's kind of what they are. At this point. So I don't know. I mean, the basketball purist in me would have loved to have seen a Cavs Magic rock fight, or, Atlanta against Milwaukee, or something, some variation of that, but I can't fault the league. All right, let's talk a little ownership here, which is always a sexy topic in the NBA. We've got some ownership news though, Rachel, involving 2 franchises on different coasts. And let's start in Portland. Where the Portland Trail Blazers have been sold. The Blazers, which have been on the market for the last few years, ever since Paul Allen passed away. His will stated that the team needed to be sold. His sister Jody had been operating it. Well, she has found an owner, Tom Dundon, who is the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, billionaire. He is fronting the group that is going to buy the Trail Blazers for $4 billion. Part of this group involves some local ties, so that's a reason to be optimistic if you're a Blazers fan about keeping your team in Portland. Your reaction to the Blazers, the price tag, and new ownership in Portland?
Well, it's interesting. I believe the sale has been reported to be almost $4 billion. Sorry, God forbid I say $4 million. $4 billion. Phil Knight apparently offered $2 billion, and I'm kind of surprised that he didn't go further than that. And certainly could have arranged an ownership group where he could have put together $4 billion. I mean, he's Phil Knight, and his Nike shares alone could probably self-finance it. So that surprised me a little bit. Dundon has said that he intends to keep the team in Portland. Also, Adam Silver recently made the point of saying that Portland needs a new arena. Mm-hmm. And he brought that up in context of a question about expansion to Seattle. So I don't think the people of Seattle who experienced having their team taken away are eager, as much as they love the Sonics, to take away Portland's team. But it is going to be interesting to see what happens with that building, if Dundon is willing to self-finance a new arena, because I'm not sure in Oregon public funding for an arena is going to pass just politically. And we'll have to see. Adam has specifically made it a point of emphasis that they need a new arena there. And again, he brought that up in the context of a question about Seattle, Las Vegas expansion.
Yeah. Nobody wants to see the Blazers move. They have fantastic fans that show up in the regular season, that show up in the playoffs, that were great during that conference finals run with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. It's a great place, a great fan base for basketball. Also, Portland rules, man. And if you're a wine drinker, go to Portland. Portland is phenomenal. The wine country is like 20 minutes from the airport. Like, that's where you want to go and you want to hang out. Shout out to my friends at Winderly, who are the Boston College-owned vineyard out there in Portland. So I still order for them, Rachel, to this day. So Portland's a great neck of the woods. Great place to have an NBA team. But
I love the Rose Garden. I'm not saying it's not it's fine as a fan, in my opinion, but that's what the league has said.
Yeah, what they call it, the Moda Center now. The Moda Center is...
Sorry.
Yeah, we're giving Moda the credit that deserves right there for whatever Moda is.
Staples Center to me. Go on.
Yeah, it's a bad building. It's a bad building. It's not the oldest building in the NBA, but it's not good. The locker rooms aren't great. The concourses aren't great. It's not a great building. It's got to go. And look, to your point, Adam Silver wasn't asked about the building. He brought up the fact that the Blazers need a new building. And look, it's been reported that new ownership is going to keep the team in the Portland area. But I haven't heard Tom Dundon say it yet. Until I hear it out of his mouth whenever he meets with reporters or does an interview, that to me will be a very interesting answer, one I will be certainly parsing if he equivocates at all on that answer. Can he get public financing? To your point, that may be difficult. Is he willing to invest a ton of money into building a new arena? How important? I don't know the answer to that. But the lease on the Moda Center, it runs, I think, till 2030. And that's not a long time. Like that's you're talking 5 years before this team can up and leave on its own. So hopefully, I know we both agree that they get together, find a way to build a new building, and that team stays in Portland for years to come. But I don't know if I'd be nervous if I was a Blazer. That nervous is too strong a word. But whenever a team gets sold to an out-of-town guy who has no ties to the area, yeah, you've got some minority owners that have some ties there. That's fine. But when you need a building and you don't know if that building's going to be coming and there's an expiration date on your lease, you do want some urgency from everybody involved to get something done.
Yeah. And again, I don't think anyone in Seattle is looking to take Portland's team. The fans I've talked to don't feel that way. I love the Blazers. People who follow me on social media know I have a special affection for the Blazers. It's just the relationship there is so fun. But again, the people who run the league have brought up this point in one city in context with another city and the arena. So we'll see. I don't know where any of that's going. I think it's good that they finally have an owner and some leadership. Tom Dundon is by all accounts a very good guy in Dallas. Mark Cuban's given him his seal of approval. He runs I believe he owns the Pro Pickleball League also, in addition to the Carolina Panthers. But we'll just have to see where it goes from here. Yeah,
and look, he bought the Panthers, didn't move that. In fact, has done, by all accounts, a pretty good job as owner of the Panthers, invested in that team and helped make them successful. So, maybe he does the exact same thing with Portland. I do think it's interesting. And look, it's more interesting because, and you and I have discussed this, that it seems like expansion could be taking a backseat to relocation. It doesn't seem like that the league is as motivated to expand as they've been in years past, that owners currently are not eager to divvy up that national TV pie, maybe as they were in years past. I think there's still an appetite to put teams in Vegas and in Seattle, but I think it's more likely that we see current teams that are moved to those locations. And as long as there's that exit strategy with the lease and the building isn't that great, then it's something that's going to be on people's minds for the foreseeable future. The other ownership development, and a smaller one certainly, is in Boston, where Bill Chisholm was officially approved by the NBA, $6.1 billion for the Boston Celtics, a record price for the NBA, at least until the Lakers are officially sold. The news that came out of this, Rachel, was that Wyc Grousbeck, who is the outgoing owner for the Celtics, the leader of the group that is effectively financed by his father, Irv Grousbeck, he is not going to be the governor of the team. When this deal was put together, it was announced by the Celtics that Grousbeck would stay on as the team governor through 2028. He would maintain effectively control of basketball operations through 2028. The NBA came in and said, no. That's not how this works. The reasons I was told was that it's purely financial, that to be a governor of the team, you have to own at least 15% of the team. And Wyc Grousbeck does not own 15% of the Boston Celtics. In fact, the only person in this ownership group that does is Bill Chisholm. So he owns that piece. He's the governor. Wyc is the alternate governor. Reportedly, he's going to keep his job as CEO. Brad Stevens certainly still there. Rich Gotham, who runs business affairs, is still there. Do you think this is just, paperwork, or do you think this is a meaningful development with the Celtics?
We'll have to see, because we've heard this song before, right? Mark Cuban was going to stay on, I believe, when the Dallas sale was made. First, it was announced, I believe, that he was going to stay on as governor. Certainly that he was going to still run basketball operations. And pretty quickly, that was apparent that was not true. And, Mark made the point when the Luka trade happened. They didn't talk to me about this. I mean, when you make that major decision, it's pretty clear he's just not involved with running the team anymore. And that was not the announcement when he sold the team. We're seeing this happen in Boston. Here in LA, I'm very curious to see what happens with Mark Walter buying the team, because again, there was a similar announcement that Jeannie Buss is going to stay the governor and she's going to stay, the president of the team. And as we see with Wyc's situation in Boston, she can stay the president of the team for as long as Mark Walter wants to keep her in the job. And I would argue that both of those people have done a great job at their jobs. But I'm curious, given this with the Celtics and given what happened in Dallas, is Jeannie Buss going to be a board of governors meetings in the future? And that's relevant to me personally a little bit, because how many men are sitting around that table versus how many women are sitting around that table is important.
Yeah, and I forgot what percentage Mark Walter is buying of the team. I know the valuation is $10 billion, but he's not buying 100% of it. I think the Buss family's going to own, because you own minority share in it. But that money, or that share and the money from it, is going to be divvied up amongst the Buss kids. Like, she's got to share her whatever piece of it that they're selling with her brothers. So I think this, obviously, if you're Jeannie Buss, this lays out the rules effectively, which I don't think the Celtics really were either not aware of or oblivious to when this announcement was initially made. Because when I talked to people in the league office, they were kind of like, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but they were kind of like, hey, they put this out there, but this was never really what it was going to be. You always had to have that 15% stake. So now Jeannie knows what, rule she's playing by. If somehow she comes out of this with 15% of the team, then she can stay in that position of power. I think this is just, for the Celtics, it's bad news for Wyc, but I think this was always going to eventually be, not what Wyc wanted. And I say that as someone that believes that Wyc has been one of the great owners in Boston sports history. I mean, he came in and led a team to a championship, added on to a core that included Paul Pierce, led that team to a championship, rebuilt, won another championship, and has the Celtics, this year notwithstanding, in position to be a championship contender for many, many years to come. So his ownership resume, his ownership tenure has been virtually flawless. But new guy comes in, pays $6 billion. He's going to want his word to be the final word. He's going to want final say over all decisions. I never thought this was going to go till 2028 with Wyc Grousbeck as the team governor. Maybe ended more abruptly than I initially believed it was going to, but I can see, obviously, I saw Wyc and Chisholm at Summer League together. They seem to be getting along. They seem to be in sync. And look, this year is a rebuilding year. There's no financial stress. In fact, just the opposite. The Celtics, who just did a deal to move George Niang off the roster, now they are $4 million over the first tax apron, $12 million above the luxury tax threshold. Like, they are just going to continue to cut to try to get as far under both thresholds as they possibly can. So there's no pressure to win, pressure to spend, any of that stuff. But at some point there will be. And I think that's where, how you build a team, how much you spend, that's where certain tensions can certainly develop between a former owner and a current owner. So, he'll remain on board. Again, from what I understand, the dynamic is very good between these two men. But, 2 years, things can change. To your point, it only took months for Mark Cuban to be on the way out in Dallas in terms of basketball decision-making power. But it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out.
I get it. These guys Wyc was a very present owner, right? Mark Cuban, obviously an extremely present owner who felt that they built these franchises back up, after they took over. And you just gave Wyc's resume has been exceptional in Boston. We know what Cuban did in Dallas, not just the championship, but making the team as relevant and as destination as it is, when you and I both know how it was before he came in and got involved. And I think it's difficult to see what has been your life's work for a long time in someone else's hands. But it's true with companies where, they buy out the founder and then they keep him on the CEO, and sometimes it works, but often it doesn't. The Lakers have been Jeannie Buss's life, literally her entire life. And I personally hope she can retain enough of an ownership stake to still be the governor, because again, she and Mark Walters reportedly get along great, and this was a friendship deal in some ways. But I think she's just been good for the game, and she's been a good, important voice in the league office and has a ton of experience on the committee she's on. And it's good to see, I'd like to see more minority representation in those board of governors meetings, and I'd like to see more gender representation, and losing Jeannie Buss would be a blow to that. So
yeah, no question. Losing Jeannie Buss, losing a member of the Buss family at the table for the Los Angeles Lakers would be certainly new in the long history of the NBA. And to put a button on Wick, I mean, it's got to be tough for him, because I don't think he really wanted to sell. This was the decision that was made.
I didn't want to say that.
His father, who's in his 90s, made this decision, and I understand it. Like, you want to get your house in order as you're entering the twilight of life. I get it. And certainly you got a record price. Like, you bought the team for $300 something million, and you're selling it for $6 billion. That's a pretty damn good investment. If you're H. Irving Grousbeck. But certainly I think Wick wanted this ride to last a little bit longer. I think Steve Pagliuca, another outgoing owner, wanted this ride to last a little bit longer. We don't have to do this, but I just find, we talked about the Connecticut Sun and that situation on the last show. It's gotten messier and messier since we talked about them. Now there's multiple teams, multiple cities. They want to keep the team in Hartford. Maybe there's a mistake. They want to, maybe
Boston,
move it to Texas.
To Boston. Do these women a favor.
Boston. Do everybody a favor. Move it to Boston. Give them the big market, the shine. Yep. Let them play at the TD Garden. Yes, of course. It'd be great. All right, Rachel, I will let you craft your email to the NBA condemning them for not putting the Orlando Magic on a higher profile game early in the schedule. It can complement my email that I've already sent. You can give 2 voices to that opinion.
So, Chris, the last 2 weeks you have signed off by saying we will not do a podcast the next week. What are you saying now?
Still waiting on Jonathan Kuminga. If something happens with Jonathan Kuminga, we'll be back, because I think there's a domino effect. Al Horford's sitting out there waiting for a job. Bring Al Horford to Oakland, or San Francisco, I guess now. See you next week, Rachel.